Oh, hello, and hello to the other members of the Wanimate committee who are joining me this evening. David O'Connell.
Hello.
And Lindsay Fleay. There we go.
Hi, everyone.
I'm already running into a bug. I can already hear myself. So before we get started, I'm going to find out the track down that whole thing. There it is. Okay, all gone. Hello.
Very nice.
Yes, and on to the list of things we're supposed to talk about. Welcome. There's 6 people looking already. That's great. A good start. Straight out of the gate, everyone's into it, and it is in that sense, I promise no horses are going to be flogged into obscurity this evening. So, hi and welcome to the new Wanimate Vodcast, the Lightbox. First in a new format where the Wanimate community come together to wax lyrical about animation in Western Australia and beyond. Tonight, we have Lindsay Fleay, David O'Connell, and myself, Tanya Beeson, that's my name, discussing the Annie nominees for the Best Feature and Best Series, and are joined by 2 of the production team behind Lustration, producer Taryne Laffar, and technical artist Caitlyn Lomax to discuss. So hopefully that's going to be an awesome and interesting conversation. I'm going to do the thing that you said that you were worried about, Lindsay. What's been going on in the world of animation?
Oh, gosh. Well, quite a lot, it seems. I'm just trying to keep up with it myself, actually. I looked at the list of things that were going to be talked about with animated movies, and I realized I'd only seen about 10% of them. And I've just been so busy developing courses at TAFE and running around in circles with this huge upswing in work that's going on around the state at the moment. There's quite a bit going down. All kinds of little productions and little things going on. I mean, Lustration is one of them. There's a lot of little online projects like that are going as well. So in terms of big movies and stuff, I don't have any big films or anything like that, but certainly there's a lot more activity than there was before.
There's an incredible amount of production. There's like in counting, we had an extensive list of things that we could potentially talk about from the last couple of years of the COVID shutdown, and it's been an impressively animation-focused industry at the moment.
The live arts have suffered greatly, but the offline arts, I guess the screens, the animation, all that sort of stuff has had a bit of a revival. I mean, everything from our student numbers at the local TAFE doing screen and media, right through to the amount of people asking if we've got spare students to do work. It's it's been pretty good.
And do you think that's purely COVID driven, or do you think that is a reflection
I'd say
of growing a taste for animation in the community?
My take on it is that COVID certainly played a part, and people have definitely been staying home a bit more. So I think it's more accelerated trends rather than created them. Yeah, because we were noticing just a couple of years ago there was a big upswing, and there were 5 local features made in 1 year, like the Hounds of Love, and a few years before that there was These Final Hours. And they weren't small, insubstantial films either. There was actually quite a bit going down, and so. Yeah, that sort of thing's been going on. But yeah, lots of small, little, low-level things. We're doing a lot of work with our students through Ink animation, which does a lot of titmouse cartoons. And it's like anybody who's anybody is being signed up to do stuff. I've had contacts in Vancouver that have told me that Vancouver has just run off its feet. It's like everything is booked out. All the productions are going. There's massive films going off all over the place, and it's just a lot of activity across the board. It's like too numerous to mention. So yeah.
And the studios here are getting a lot more back from international. production. So, and we're doing a lot more local production. So there's amazing and interesting stuff.
So exactly anything major and massive, it's a bit hard to tell because a lot of people are very hush-hush about stuff. So we get a lot of interest and stuff, but no one really quite says anything to anybody about what's actually going down because they're too busy making sure no one else gets it, I think. But there's lots of things in the offing. But we've had a lot of international, I guess, look-ins via places like Ink Animation. So Ink does contract work for Titmouse, as I've mentioned earlier. So a lot of the international stuff. So everything from the Animaniacs to Love, Sex and Robots, or whatever the cartoons are that are passing through in their schedule, will come through WA. So it's not like it all happens over in another part of the world or something. Bits and pieces of it come through. That's good. So
good opportunity for local animators. So.
Yeah, and it's a lot more opportunities there to get noticed quickly. Whereas, I remember my time in the 80s and 90s. It was like, being in Perth was literally like being trapped on the moon.
True.
You weren't so much worried about where your next meal was coming from as where your next breath of air was going to come from, because there was just nothing. It was like a vacuum. Nowadays, you get the opposite problem.
The rise of the streaming services also, people being content starved, has led to a lot of new interesting stuff coming out.
I don't know how they're going to sustain it, actually, but in some respects, it looks like a rerun of VHS crossed with cable, with the best of both worlds. You're seeing a lot of duds getting shoveled onto streaming in an attempt to rescue them and stuff. But it's like your video store just came home and now it sits in your television, and it's
like all things, it'll find a level eventually. But
I think so.
It shines,
Like at the moment, they're all busy trying to secure customers. So we're going through a boom time at the moment. And then when it all starts to settle down, then it'll start to get more expensive, or things will fall off the end, and there'll be a tightening of the industry or a maturing of it, or whatever they decide to call it.
Yeah,
then you'll get those sort of things.
So on to the next topic of conversation. I'm going to talk a little bit about the 330 animation competition. For those of you who are not familiar with the 330 animation competition, it is a 30-second animation that has to be created within a 3-month period, and that's the 330. It's organized and run by Wanimate every year. The shorts can use any form of animation, 2D, 3D, stop motion. We've had Lego animations submitted with all sorts of subject matter and amazing styles, and it must include the 330 ID. Over previous years, we've used words like ring or star, and this year, as it's coming up, the 330 identifier will be probably announced, hopefully on a future Lightbox.
Yes, so we've had words in the past like box and key, so short and simple and succinct, but with multiple meanings, and just seeing where people take them. And we've been surprised, actually, at what comes out.
So this year's 330 idea was announced on April 1st, apparently, according to my documentation that is being presented by Travis, hidden in the pages behind us.
Is that in case it all blows up, we can kind of pretend it was an April Fool's joke or something?
Yeah, it seems like that's future-proofing it, isn't it?
I sort of see it as joke being the word, maybe. So there's 3 categories that people can enter: school age, higher education, and open. And they tend to be fairly cutthroat at the educational level. We've got several animation schools here in Perth duking it out to be the best. In the higher education, it has been pipped for 3 years in a row by the same team. So hopefully they'll be knocked off that pedestal this year. And then there's the school age group, which are ages 12 to 17. So that's very cool if people can get in, have a go, and create some awesome animation.
A couple of surprises in the school area, actually. some very startlingly professional bits of work popped out.
Yes.
I had to say that put some of the open to shame, actually. So,
Animation shorts are judged by a panel, an international panel of judges that score the films from 1 to 10, and the highest average score over the on the night is given the award at the 3:30 awards night. This year, the competition runs from April 1st to June 30 and is open to international entrants. We also have partnered with Cinefest Oz. So the top 3 Australian entries, and because we are opening it to international entrants, but Cinefest Oz is taking the top 3 Australian entries are automatically entered into Cinefest Oz this year. So it's a very, very cool opportunity to get your film seen even more. Registrations will open on March 1st, so in a month's time. Hold on. It's only a few days' time. Okay.
March, yes.
Yes, I am a month behind. That's cool. Keep an eye on our website, our Facebook page, our LinkedIn. Do we have an Instagram? We have an Instagram as well. So all of that is potentially out there. Now, I notice our next topic of conversation, just trying to, hold on, let me just track. Right, and we'll get, so I can see.
Pepper and Intr?
Yes, that's the next step. So we're going to talk about
There they are.
Taryne Laffar and Caitlyn Lomax. Of course, because of technical issues, Taryne has been knocked off, but she's calling from the greater Australian Wild West. So her connection is not amazing. So we'll hopefully be able to get her back on. But I'm going to bump Caitlyn into this conversation and introduce her to her. So Caitlyn Lomax, welcome.
Hey.
Hey, Caitlyn.
Can we make you the focus? No, we can't.
No, I think it makes you the focus if you make lots of
So you're the focus, Tanya.
I don't.
I think that's how she prefers it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Hold on.
No, that's better.
So it's not the Tanya show; it's the Wanimate show. Thank you very much. But welcome, Caitlyn. So we're hopefully Taryne will come in as well, and we'll get you to talk about lustration, which is a very interesting name for a very, very interesting project that you've been working on for. Now, you first told me about this project in April last year, was it? No.
It would have been like July-ish, but we weren't allowed to discuss it and announce it to the public yet. But yeah, it's been cool. We've been working on it all of last year, pretty much. And it is launching next month at South by Southwest. It is a VR series, and it's based on a comic series by Ryan Griffin. And yeah, it's been epic. Pretty much had the support of Screen West, Screen Australia, Meta / Facebook, wherever you want to call them these days. And the cool thing about it, I mean, I was technical producer on it, so I feel like I probably nerd out on this a lot more than a lot of people, but we actually did the whole thing in VR as well. All the modeling, the animation, everything was also done in VR.
Including all the painting? Was it all 3D painting?
Everything was done in VR, except audio, obviously.
Nifty.
But then,
yeah. One of those big kind of wavy 3D paint the air type. Yeah, they're pretty cool. Very cool.
I had a go with 3D paint. It's pretty awesome. Very,
It's
very
harder
cool.
than it looks. I was like, oh, that looks fun. Okay, I mean, I'm not even a painter as it is.
There's a couple out there that are basically bottomless. That is, they basically have no sense of scale. You can just keep, paint a scene and then paint a picnic and then have some food like a hamburger, and then on the food you can draw a sesame seed, and then on the thing you can draw an ant, and inside the ant you can see its its brain, and inside its brain it's imagining a city, and you just keep peeling it closer and closer and closer, and there's no limit to the format.
Yeah,
And so
it's really cool. But actually, it's
wild.
quite interesting from a technical perspective when you're trying to do a real life sized show where you've got real people in there and you're supposed to be feeling like you're part of it, making sure all the scaling's right and everything in that as well.
So do you have situations where you're trying to paint a picture and then you realize, I've got to paint the other side of the street. I've got to walk over there to paint the other side of the street. You can't use forced perspective.
I don't have to do that because I'm the
No,
producer,
true.
but I'm sure the artists do all the time.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Okay.
They've all got their own tools for moving around it in really cool ways and getting into some pretty interesting positions in there.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the concept and the story? Ryan Griffin, as you said, is the creator. He's known for the Indigenous sci-fi drama Clever Man, and with art by James Brower. The animated series is going to be in VR, so very, very cool. But how does the story go?
Yeah, so pretty much illustration is the thing between life and death, I guess. I don't want to give away too much of it, but
there's Taryne.
It's
That's
quite cool switching between Taryne.
Hey.
Yep, we can.
Yep.
Hopefully we'll get her.
Caught in a viral vortex there.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it to buffer.
Hey.
Hi. Can you see us? Can you hear us? No. Yep.
We got a frame.
We can hear typing.
And we've got a message.
Oh yes, big lag. Oh dear.
There is a little bit of lag.
Okay, big lag. Okay, no, fair enough. You are out there in the wild.
That trouble.
Okay, we'll try and deal as best we can. Always going to be technical problems on the first episode, so let's hopefully we can get through it. So we were just. Looks like we got a picture.
Sorry.
We got a picture. See, the NBN is doing its thing. Well done.
Okay, so tell us the story if you can. If you can hear us, Taryne or Caitlyn.
So it's about like being illustrated, and it's kind of this space between like life and death. We're gonna give away all of the story. You have to watch it, but it is very cool. It flicks between a lot of different realities and people's perspective on things as the things are going. And it's one main storyline, but there's so many parts to it. It's almost like a it's not choose your own adventure. It is a linear story, but in like Goosebumps, how you could like pick where you're gonna go. Was it Goosebumps? No, Animorphs. Back in the day, those books. It feels like that, where like you're picking where you're seeing the story from, so you kind of get a different perspective of what's happening. It's very cool.
Yeah. Taryne can't hear us.
Yeah.
Okay. Damn.
Okay.
So maybe we can send her questions. I think we can hear Taryne, so because I can hear a keyboard going.
Well, that was probably me.
Yeah. Oh, or it's Lindsay making
No,
notes.
I was looking up Animorphs on my clicky keyboard.
Because we're way too old for Animorphs. I know what it is. But yes. Also, choose your own
yes.
adventure books and that sort of thing. So,
It's definitely not choose your own adventure, but just like
It's
that feeling of having control over how you're seeing
Hmm.
the story is very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. So, next question. Can you talk about the technical aspects of the problem? The word I'm looking for is project. How did the team make the graphic novel work in VR? Can you sort of?
Honestly, it was insane. It was actually such a learning experience for, I think, literally everyone on the project, except Zoe, because she does it for a living. For me, the first really interesting part of it was I come from a very interactive games background, so I'm not used to linear experiences at all. And then on the flip side, we had a lot of people who are that's what they do. They do linear storytelling, like film. So combining those two workflows was there's no rule book or like guide on how to do a VR series. This was very new, and added on top of that, we were pushing the limits of what Quill could do because we did it all by in Quill, which Oculus/Meta owned until like a few months ago, which was also a thing. So in a regular linear story, you're using storyboards. You can block it out to an extent to then go and do your polish thing, like that standard workflow. From an interactive perspective, yes, we can block it out, but then you've also on top of that got these people from normal film setting are only used to watching something from a 2D perspective. So you're fixed, like that's it. Storyboards are easy to create in that sense because we're doing 6 degrees of freedom though, which means you can move straight through it. Like if you're walking forward in the scene. So it's not just about what are you looking at. You have to think about everything around you. You have to storyboard your whole environment, and kind of getting that balance of like the people that are more used to the linear 2D film sort of 3D film as well, flat film when it's distributed, being very used to like seeing a picture and understanding what that's going to look like in the final product, to pushing the boundaries with the storyboard, because things that they saw in their head once they saw it in a 3D environment, it didn't look how they pictured it. So that I found really, really interesting. But it's cool that everyone's open to it, because I feel like this is like a very big way of how content's going to be delivered, whether that is in a game or a series, like a storytelling experience. Then getting hell nerdy on it, because we're pushing the limits with Quill so much, there was just so much stuff that we had to consider. In VR, there's always like memory and optimization stuff that you have to take into consideration, but this was next level because it's not like a typical game engine where you have all those stats. Like you got a developer that can really pull the stats apart and really break it down for you. You're working within Quill, and they're artists. That's not what they're usually trained in. Like, yes, I understand that there's a bit of training into optimization, but this is next level. Like has to be running essentially on a mobile processor. So you have to think about like your draw calls and your layers. Even like within the animation, like how much are you going to do frame by frame versus transform keys and stuff like that, right down to what brush you use, because a flat brush as opposed to like a brush with a bunch of texture just takes up so much memory. So there's all these parts that you don't really consider in traditional animation for like either film or games that you do consider it in games, but brushes, like has anyone ever had to think about what brush you're going to use? Like, I don't think so.
It's
Well,
more
Have you
texture
guys-
based.
Terms
It's
of
more
a
text.
visual aesthetic rather than a technical side of things.
Yeah, I mean, we have
Exactly.
lots of limits and low ceilings, but they're usually things like, well, back in the day they were polygon counts. These days it's more how many shaders are you running at once in your real-time engine.
Exactly,
But,
right?
I spent, well, if you're talking about someone who's doing linear production, I spent my whole career doing linear production. I worked in film layout on projects like Happy Feet. And then one of the next gigs I got when I was back in Sydney, when I came back to Perth, I found myself working at Interzone Games, the ill-fated Interzone. And then they kind of grabbed me and thought, oh, the film guy. And they gave me all the stuff to do, like, oh, okay, I know all this stuff to do. And I'm thinking, all right, well, I work with cameras and lights and stuff like that. And so where's my camera? Oh, it's bolted to the player's head, and it's a third-person perspective. I'm going, oh, okay. And what else? Oh, you have a sun and a single light for a shadow. And I'm just like, I've gone from AAA film production right down to like kindergarten levels of expressing yourself with light and cameras. So it all turned out to be in map layout and world building. So essentially you do all your scene cuts and transitions and your composition with things to look at and places you go down. So I'd be building a city street, but you'd have weird situations where you had to watch out for what you had in there, because if I faced this direction, looked at a shop front, oh yeah, that's nice. I turn around and the world freezes, goes, oh, there's a whole street full of stuff. Everything grinds to a halt. And people weren't allowed, the players on the server weren't allowed to accumulate into a bunch because we caused the server to melt down for all kinds of networking reasons. So the whole universe was like something out of some kind of dystopian science fiction film where everyone was deliberately scattered. Like, oh, I need to get some eggs and milk or bread for my silly game. Well, you have to walk 2 miles that way to get the bread, and then 3 miles that way to get the milk, just in case you all accumulate. We have a problem.
There's so much strategy involved that people don't see happening in the background.
Oh, absolutely. And it's all the fun we took carefully out of it, because when you've got a multiplayer environment, you'll find a lot of those game mechanics are extremely shallow. Like, walk 2 miles, kill 5 badgers, press button and watch progress bar. That's it. Because if you have any cool game mechanics, it's nearly always used to troll and bully other people that are new to the game. So everyone gets blanded down into this kind of shopping trolley experience where you basically start at one end of Coles, fight the gnomes, and then by the time you're leaving, the gnomes all come back to life and the next shopping trolley is coming through for the loot.
Depends what the budget is.
That's true. But it's interesting listening to you talk about things like brushstrokes and stuff. So you're going for a mobile platform?
So we're using the Quest 2, which is actually overtook Xbox sales last quarter. Just putting that out there.
Scandal.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but I consider
you'll upset a whole bunch of
mainstream.
fanboys.
Yeah.
Good work.
But yeah, the Quest 2, it does have the ability to connect to a computer, so you can run PC VR games and obviously get much better graphics. But the majority of users on the Quest 2, that are using, I don't know what to call it now, Meta TV, which is where it'll be released. They're just using it as a mobile, like a portable system, untethered.
Okay.
So we had to allow for the processor, the standalone processor in there, which is essentially a mobile processor. We're essentially optimizing it to a mobile game.
How are you holding people's attention? Like, obviously, it's a virtual environment that you're doing the story within, and if people are looking around all over the place, like, how are you drawing them to a specific viewpoint in the story?
Well, this is an interesting question, right? Because even as the story, like as you go through the story, there's different camera viewpoints that you can watch it from. So you could be watching it from a different, like you could be, out here and the conversation's happening down here, but you're watching it from that perspective. I do see that a lot of people may rewatch this a few times because they'll realize watching it from different camera angles is going to give them a different perspective of the story. Sometimes you're in
Does
one
it
room.
change the story?
I don't think it changes it, but it definitely leaves some holes where you're like, hang on a second, what just happened? Like sometimes you'll be in one room on a camera view and there'll be something happening in another room, but there'll be cues in that camera, like maybe a character will have his ear up against the door, like as if there's something happening in there, so maybe there's another. It doesn't look like it's a hint though. It's so well done. It feels just like your instincts kind of kick in. You're like, oh, that looks interesting. Maybe I'll see what else is going on, sort of thing. It's not like, oh, they're hinting at me to look into that room. You know what I mean?
Speaking of the characters, so you've got Tamlin Tamina, Jaikel from Star Wars Rebels, Dante Basco, Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, the animated voice of Batman. You've pulled together a pretty stellar cast. Were they able to provide more than just their voices when they're doing motion capture for you, or is that?
I wish I could take credit for getting them on board, but I didn't. I think Ryan, like the writer and director, actually reached out to them all. We only have voices, as far as I'm aware, unless there's some other like thing that's happening in the background in a different department that I don't know about. That would be epic. I'd love to get them in mocap.
So, do you just have this whole scene just play out in once, or do you have sections that just trigger depending on where the audience wanders or goes? I don't want to call them players. It feels like the audience is. Feels like a live performance in a theatre of the round, really. Except you can kind of.
Yeah, pretty much is. It plays out. There is 4 episodes. They're each about 6-7 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
And it just plays out. Yeah, you can't change the story. There's no interaction.
Okay, so you're basically wandering in another series of events that are just taking place.
Yeah.
And if you're in the right place and the right time, you'll catch it. Otherwise, if you decide to go wandering and exploring, it'll happen in the building next door, and you won't know what's going on.
Yeah, we've definitely taken a lot of design decisions around that to make you not want to go too far away. I think that's the storyboarding / blocking, whatever we want to call what that was, because I'm not sure it really actually fills either of those definitions.
Yeah,
but
okay. So are you doing that with performance, or are you doing that with invisible walls or map design? How are you approaching that?
Just the way that it's designed, like you'd have to be trying to break it. If you're there to break it, of course you're going to break it. Yeah. But I feel like that's every experience.
Well, you can't stop that sort of thing.
Exactly. Especially in VR, like we can't put colliders in Quill like we can in the game, so we can't stop someone, actually just putting their head through the door if they wanted to. It is a limitation with this, but there's so much thought put into the animation, and where like the amount of revisions we did for where the characters are standing that would have been so minimal, but to make sure that we were guiding the person's eye view to the right spots and stuff like that. Like there was so much thought put into that part of it.
Right. So you don't block them, you encourage them, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. I like that. That's really nice.
The other thing, the audio is all spatially placed within there as well. So like if you're looking over there and you hear something over there, you're going to look over there.
So if you move closer, you'll get better audio, of course. I'm assuming.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's very subtle.
Yeah,
I like it. It's a good thing.
Where can people find Lustration? How do we get to see it?
Well, there is currently the pilot / I call it a trailer, it's not a pilot, sorry, on Oculus TV at the Meta TV. Sorry, I'm going to keep saying that for a few more months, I reckon. Meta TV on the Quest at the moment. You can also access it on what was the one before the Quest? I'm having a mental blank. The old Oculus. You can access it on that as well on your computer. But the full version will be released after we premiere at South by Southwest.
Yes.
Cool.
It's very, very cool. And it's there is a bunch of art and previews and a small little production test that's up on lustration.co, which is the website of the project. And just one more thing. What are you up to next?
What am I up to?
Yeah, what's your next thing in the world of interactive?
Well, my studio Intr is still going really well. We actually had our second busiest month since opening last month, which was insane. But I've actually taken a role at Immutable as producer on their new game that's coming out this year, Guild of Guardians, which I'm really excited about. I freaking love like metaverse stuff, and this is on. It's a blockchain game. It does have NFTs and stuff. I feel like NFTs have a bad name at the moment, but the values of Immutable align with what I think about NFTs so well. It's about providing, more control to the players, like assets and value to the players, empowering the players. It's going to be cool. You don't have to have an NFT. You don't even have to link up a wallet to play it, which is why I love it so much. It's all about the game, which is cool. But on the flip side, they are building, the layer 2 for Ethereum, speeding up the transaction processes and making it carbon neutral, and just got that contract with GameSpot recently. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening there. And personally, just going to put it out there, I think that this metaverse that people have in their heads is only going to be possible if the blockchain exists and is utilized properly. Not saying everyone uses it properly though, but yeah.
I would say there's a lot of people not using it properly.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot of people that are in there just trying to print money with a thing without having a real idea of what they're doing or why, apart from making money.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. It's a pity
it's been a pleasure.
Couldn't get connected properly, but yes, she is wild and remote. So hopefully at some point we can get a chance to talk to her and
should
talk
definitely
about
get her
project
back sometime, because she will talk about more of the stuff with the awesome cast that we had, because I didn't actually get that much actual time with them.
That's all cool. But up next in our conversation, we're going to talk a little bit about the up-and-coming Annie Awards. So thank you, Caitlyn.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Not a problem.
Bye. Catch you later.
And
Annie Awards.
And yes, the Annie Awards. Dun, dun, dun. We're only a few days away from the Annies, which are the animation equivalent to the Oscars. Generally, it's a good idea of what is going to be up for. The Oscars have been announced as well, I'm pretty sure.
It's almost identical, I believe, or very, very close. I think Fleay might be the only sort of addition for the Oscars list.
Well, Fleay appears in the international films on the Annies, so the alternate list.
I think it also appears in documentaries or something like that as well. There's a couple of different categories I saw it in, so it's there. But yeah.
So
it's cool.
Well, hopefully everyone will get a chance to see it. But the 49th Annie Awards this year, it's all going to be live televised. So what is that? So on Saturday, March the 12th, so in a couple of weeks' time, at 7 p.m. US Pacific time, which is Sunday the 13th at 11 a.m. for us in Western Australia. So good time to sit down and
check it out
and watch some animation. So very, very cool. Let's talk about the films that are coming that are up for nominations. I've got 5 films.
Crikey.
Okay. Dun, dun, dun. It's very standard run of the fair American big budget animations. 3 from Disney, 1 from Illumination, and 1 from Sony Pictures Animation. I have seen all these films, so
Good heavens.
yes.
I haven't seen Sing 2, I'm afraid, so I'm out on that one. But all the others I can at least talk about.
I can totally talk about Sing 2. That's,
I've only seen clips from various parts of them, and I got to say the Disney stuffs and the Pixar stuff's pretty impressive, and pretty impregnable, I think, in terms of execution.
true.
I still think the Pixar stuff looks better in the sense that it feels It feels a bit more nuanced. Whereas I looked at Encanto and I couldn't help but think that they've combined this with the whole sort of ethnic thing, but somehow it feels a bit superhero-y, and lots of song dance numbers and lots of color and stuff like that. Whereas the Luca stuff, I think, had a greater range of emotions and
Encanto works as a whole piece, though. If you actually sit down and watch it, it's better than just the trailer.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not looking at the trailer. I'm just looking at some of the clips from some of the musical numbers, and they were just. They should do a Bollywood movie. Those guys, they'd rock. They'd seriously blow the Indians out of the water. I think, in terms of the level of visual acuity or their performance. I mean, one thing you cannot fault is their character design and the range of emotions and acting they can get out of a digital puppet. I mean, just look at the still we've got here. It's just extraordinary.
Mirabelle's design is incredible when you look at it. That splash of color that she's actually got down her dress actually contains symbols from every other member of her family, linking her across the entirety of the family. So it's a great little nuance, and it's a beautiful little bit of character design.
And a little bit of foreshadowing.
Yes, very much heavy foreshadowing, but yeah.
Yes. But the magical madrigals, the basic plot, blessed family living in a magical house, and their connection to magic starts point. So Mirabelle is the only non-magical character in the film, and it sort of becomes her personal mission to bring it back. It's a nice piece. Lin-Manuel Miranda doing the songs, and obviously Don't Talk About Bruno is going gangbusters in the Spotify downloads at the moment.
the staging for that was just amazing with all the rain and weather and stuff. It was really good.
Pressure is the other one. Louisa's song is the other one that's doing quite well on Spotify at the moment.
And Louisa's character, very un-Disney-like, the whole thing of having because she's the strong one, right?
Yes.
Yes. So her build is very un-Disney princess, and it's awesome. So they're dealing with different body types and personalities for all this extensive cast, and it does have a huge cast.
Which sounds a bit ironic, really, where Disney is considered to be radical and revolutionary by just having normal people in its cast.
It's true.
And it's surprising how difficult that's been to get that sort of stuff off the ground. I mean, I'm just thinking of shows like Steven Universe, where they took the whole 3 guys and 1 token girl thing and turned it around the other way, where they have 3 females and an immaturely young boy who's growing up. 3 mother figures, effectively, and they're all completely different characters, but none of the usual baggage that you get with this sort of stuff. It's just, you watch that sort of stuff and you think, fuck, why hasn't anyone been doing this decades ago? It's just, no reason for it. And Luca, good grief.
Luca.
I really want to see this on a big screen, but I think I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and watch it on streaming, I think.
Of those five films, Luca is my favorite. I loved it. It's it's so much smaller in scope compared to Encanto, but it's just a really nice, heartwarming story. The two main characters, as been pointed out to me, are very queer-coded if you're into that sort of thing.
Well, the director claims it's not.
No, I'm just thinking of the body film.
It's queer-coded.
It totally is. No, it totally is. There's definitely a feel for it. So, and it's just a nice, heartwarming story about two people finding their legs, essentially.
Quite literally.
Yeah. And it's a really interesting setting as well, going into that kind of 1960s halcyon Italian Riviera summer, and just sort of treading the same ground as Fellini, and even, oddly enough, Miyazaki with some of his Lupin stuff. Just getting that lovely sense of period there. It's beautifully captured.
And
I think the opening scene with the boat.
Blah blah language, Tanya. But you know the one.
The opening scene with the fisherman at the boat. It's just really nice. It's really subtle. I think for me to be perfect, it would have these sort of color palettes of, say, the Troll movie, where they had lots of greys and subtle somber colors, but it never ever felt depressing. Or because usually when they use palettes like that in animated films, they use to suggest negative emotions. But it was really nice to see stuff like Trolls use a really subtle palette, and that was about the only thing I was thinking. If only they used a little subtle palette here and there. But the bright, chirpy colors and the stuff really suits it. It's very kid friendly and it's weird. It does capture that sort of period, that sense of period, but then it goes even brighter and trippier when you go into some of the imagined sequences, which are just pretty impressive. Swimming amongst the stars at a fish and stuff like that. It's just wondrously broken in those moments. It's great. It's good. No, there's definitely some classic animations coming and doing the rounds at the moment. It's a pleasure. I just can't seem to get out and see any before they all flash past. Anyway, busy life. Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it yet, Luca is a fish monster living off the coast of Italy, near a small fishing village, dreaming of a larger world, and he ventures out of the water to discover a fellow fish monster boy, Alberto, and the two of them sort of become embroiled in the nearby coastal towns, pasta making, fishing, and bicycle races, and it's so sweet. It's actually really. It sounds
really like some of the old kid films or stories used to get in that peririd.
It's all to afford a Vespa as well. Yeah. So the bike is the end goal.
Right. Yeah, so it's weird. It's like I remember, it's like all the old Canadian kids films you'd see in the 70s. Escape to Rainbow Mountain or something like that, or one of those. What's it?
These are weird though, because they're talking more about the acceptance of the other as well. That's a thing.
It's all very 21st century.
Yeah. Well, that's a thing that's very strong with Luca. Very strong. Acceptance of self, acceptance of the other, and acceptance of the self as the other at times. It's all there with Luca. It's part of his voyage. That
seems to be the modern theme, the themes of a lot of Pixar films of late, starting with Inside Out, which was, first glance looked quite, not gimmicky, but that turned out to be incredibly nuanced.
I think Luca manages to achieve a lot more with a lot less when it comes to this film, if you understand what I'm saying.
I think I know what you mean.
It's not trying to create this entire mythology. It's just a little rural setting that
it's telling a story.
And a couple of interesting characters that work. So, onto something awesomely big and in scope and drama. So
huge amount of world building for this one. Huge amount of world building in the way they create Commander.
Yes, if you've ever delved into creating worlds for role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons or for any sort of animated animated endeavor, you're definitely looking at a lot of work, and the sheer amount of work that's gone into creating and making the unique nations in Raya and the Last Dragon is pretty standout. Obviously, each of those cultures, which are based around a mythical former nation based around a dragon, and each of the regions is based off the part of the dragon that the map represents. So the tail, the fang, the heart, all of those regions represent different cultures, and they're represented by a sort of reflected Southeast Asian bunch of cultures that have been tapped to give each of the nations their own specific flavor, and we visit each and every one of them and see differences between them.
Wow.
Yes, it's quite nice. So Raya, the main character, teams up with Sisu, the
Awkwafina?
last dragon. Yes, Awkwafina. Yes. The titular Last Dragon on an epic mission to revive her people, revitalize and reunite the people of Putumandra. So, yes.
Ambitious. I know nothing about this film. I'd go in there and be completely surprised by every frame of it.
It's very nicely put together. It's beautiful. It has great characters, but yeah, it just the previous two films have something a little more than Raya does, and I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, because sorry, go on.
Yeah,
no,
go on.
Oh yeah, because you're right. It puts trust as its main message, and sort of trying to avoid that sort of overcoming that paranoia of other people and their intentions, and learning how to trust and form a community as one of its main messages. And so the message is there, but it just doesn't seem as powerful as like Luca, which is lighter in its touch, but the effect seems more noticeable.
Do you think it's just diluted by the sheer amount of clutter in the film, or the detail in the film, I should say? Whereas Luca's just a couple of boys in a little coastal town. It's all about them, and they form a microcosm that represents something bigger. Whereas this is building everything, trying to cover everything all at once. And I think that's going to work against.
There's still a small personal story in Raya that really works, but you can feel pretty ham-fisted at times.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you still do get that connection. You still get those emotional moments. There is certainly emotional payoff in this film, and quite a large moment actually in the conclusion. But yeah, it's weird that personal voyage of Luca, and even that personal voyage of Encanto, kind of touched me more than Raya, and I can't put my finger on why. I really can't.
Okay.
Interesting. Now for something completely different.
Look, okay, since I'm the only one here who's seen the Sing 2, I am a fan of the original film. It is one of my favorites of the last 10 years. I quite like the characterizations. The story is simple. It's a talent show with a bunch of singing, and each of the characters makes the effort and steps up to the plate when it comes to the story. They've turned it around, so they do build upon it. So, but it's not in a real satisfying way. The things that made the first film work, that whole thing of character connections, is rewound a little, and you've got Moon, played by Matthew McConaughey, he's the koala. He overcommits to a Vegas-style stage production, spectacular kind of, the sort of thing. So, and the original cast, like Taryne Edgerton and Reese Witherspoon, all are separated into minor B plots rather than being vital to the main story. So it doesn't feel as coherent as the first one. I mean, there's definitely some interesting things happening, but it's all not really connected, or loosely connected, to the point where it wouldn't really matter if that section of it was cut out.
Interesting.
Cool. So, I'd say of these 5 films that we're looking at, it is the it's not the best. It's the worst on the list. I didn't want to say worst because it's not, a lot of work has gone into it. It looks pretty. I loved seeing the characters, obviously, Taryne Edgerton and Rosita. So what is it? It's Taryne Edgerton's character, Johnny the gorilla, and Rosita the pig were my favorite characters from the previous one. So I got to see them again, and sort of, it's very, very cool. But yeah, it just doesn't feel to the same level of the first one.
Well, which is weird because the other collection seems like they're very close together. The rest of the pack is really. There's not much in it. It comes down to personal preference, I think.
Yes,
which you prefer or not.
If you're into Broadway musicals and stuff like that, well, Encanto is your film. If you want something a little older and sweeter, Now, this one I have seen. It's kind of interesting, this.
Well, you guys can talk about this. I just spoke about it, and I'm obviously an old lady.
I do. You don't like the extra graphics, that elements that.
I know what you mean. Yeah, that kind of irritated me a little bit. But I thought, well, I'm over 50 now.
Isn't it?
It's like having video conferencing with my nieces and nephews, and they put stickers all over the screen, and
that's right. Someone runs the kitten filter.
I just want to have a conversation.
Yeah, a lot of it felt redundant, I think. But I think overall, I like the style. It was like this half hand-drawn, half 3D style, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
And very kinetic.
And some great movie references throughout that, from the Kill Bill note.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic sequence.
It had an air of spontaneity about it, which I wasn't expecting.
Was it Lord and Miller involved as producers, and the director's previous work was being involved with Gravity Falls.
Oh, really? Got their ears to the ground, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad sort of connection there. Yeah.
Yes, the killer AIs are all like Apple-styled appliances. It's sort of getting to be a bit of a 21st century cliche these days. But,
so you've got that whole disconnected because you're connected to disconnected from your family and the world because you're connected to a device, and the dangers of social media. But it's forced, but it's not over forced. Again, it's just on the edge.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And of course, again, outsiders, misfits, and family connections, which is a theme that seems to run through almost all these films.
Well, it did feel a bit like a kind of TV family dropped into a movie. And, I mean, there were some interesting things there, like the pair of robots that ended up joining them, which I thought was like, I was not expecting that.
Yeah. And Katie being gay was a surprise as well. I like how it's played. It's not a point of friction. It's just there. That's not the reason that her and her father have any disagreements. It's that's just the generational differences between the two of them and their interests that is the point of friction for it. So that's interesting.
I've heard that resonate amongst the young audiences who are looking for that sort of representation, that Mitchell's versus the Machine stands out as sort of a nice portrayal of a clear character, which is great.
Well, there's always that flash of recognition when you suddenly think, hey, that's us on screen. And It's quite different. For us, an
Absolutely.
old coot like me, it was Mad Max of all things. Well, that happened to me because I'd high school, primary school with bogans and stuff like that, and then suddenly, oh my god, it's a film full of bogans. And I don't mean the usual 80s or 70s style Ocker standard cliche. I mean actual bogans and rev heads and stuff. And it was such a shock. I was like, holy shit, this feels eerily familiar. Like they somehow got into my bones and made a film in there instead of me watching some Martians do it, So, it's interesting.
And this one, great. As far as from a storytelling perspective, they give all the characters pretty much equal weight as well.
Very much an ensemble cast.
Yeah.
No, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. A couple of things about it wasn't really talking to me, but overall, it was cool.
And some awesome nods to some classic cinema. So it's very nice. Unfortunately, like the best feature category is these very, very high budget films. If you look like to the left on the nomination sheet for the Annies, the best indie features has got some interesting titles. Belle, Fleay, and there's a couple of films that I've not seen or heard of yet.
Should we actually just do a quick shout out? Pest Festival, I believe, is showing Fleay. I'm not sure if it's showing anywhere else at the moment. It is Eastern States. Don't know if it is. It doesn't look like it is in Western Australia, but I could be wrong on that. But Pest Festival in early March is showing Fleay. So if you want to see that, it looks like it could be well worth the look.
Very cool. And Belle got a cinema release here.
Oh, cool. Yep. So that's Luna, I believe.
Yeah. So, it was at Hoyts, I think.
Yeah.
Really?
I think Luna's also doing a season of it. So
that's very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely opportunity to check out some of the more indie animation.
What was that Iranian film we saw, Tanya, all those years ago? Set in France, about an Iranian girl
Persepolis?
growing up during the Islamic Revolution. What was that called again?
Persepolis?
Persepolis, that's it. Yeah, it reminds me of Persepolis, where it was safer to make an animated film of it than actually do the thing in live action. And,
very cool. Well, that's based off a comic, isn't it?
yeah, it's a graphic novel initially.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Very, very cool. Okay, we
Nice change.
have reached an hour. We've done an hour over this. So,
Good God.
yes.
Thank you for all those that are listening to us.
Yes, thank you who've stuck with us for the entire first episode and the bugs and the awesome amazingness. For those of you who remember the old Lightbox podcast that we did several years ago, yes, this is hopefully a little bit of an improvement and a step in the right direction. And the plan is to do this once a month, hopefully in the week leading up to the end of the month, but we'll sort of fit it in and we'll announce the date for the next one a little bit more in advance than what we did this time. So I'd like to thank my co-hosts of this evening, David O'Connor.
A pleasure, Tanya.
And Lindsay Fleay.
Oh, getting ahead of myself. A pleasure, Tanya.
That's you.
Yes. You should have done it for Lindsay.
I missed opportunity.
Well, it can be the two Ronnies. If anyone under the age of 50 knows what that is, let's not do that.
And if any of you is in the audience who has lots of comments, oh look, there's people. You know what? I have not been watching the comments.
Yeah, there's a few there.
Okay. I should have.
All right.
There's definitely some. Oh, there we go. There's some people talking, and I'm going to have to pay attention to that next time. I'm going to read these and have a look and see if I can respond to any of them.
Cool.
Some of them through. It looked like they're on the YouTube page. So
Phil, Blood orange martini, very nice. That sounds an impressive drink. I'm envious.
Nice. Yeah. Okay.
Very cool.
All right,
Okay, well, thank you very
much.
much to our audience as well, and we'll talk to you next time
Excellent.
for Lightbox, where
See you, everybody. Thanks for watching. Oh, I can't believe I said that.
yeah, thanks for watching YouTube.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I'm so naff.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're YouTubers now.
Cool.
So.
Oh dear me.
Bye.
We are too. How embarrassing. Oh well. Have a good evening, everyone.